This version of a 6-axle Goldhofer semi-trailer has been commissioned by Heavy Transport Models from Conrad and is in the colours of Krane, a German craneage company. The standard Conrad box doesn't include any instructions, and inside there's a MAN tractor, a bag of small parts and the semi-trailer itself. There's no information in the box about the real truck and trailer or Krane. The MAN tractor has a few small parts to fit, and as usual you have to separate those, and a sharp modelling knife will normally do the trick. When they're all separated you can make a start at fitting them, and the first thing is to fit the door mirrors. As usual on the MAN tractors you have to fit the passenger side mirror with an extra little piece of mirror that just fits onto the top of the frame, and when you've installed that you can just press it into the side of the cab, and that fits one side, and then you can just fit the other side of the door mirror, and that's the job done. The roof aerials supplied with the review model were a little bit strange because they're the kind that lie flat rather than stick up. The only other part to fit on the tractor, if you want it, is a second towing hitch, and that's just a simple push fit connection into the rear of the tractor. Looking underneath the MAN, the chassis is quite detailed, but the type of steering mechanism used means that the prop shaft is missing between the rear axles and the engine. The front of the MAN looks really good, with an excellent light bar and beacon lights on the roof, colour-coded door mirrors, and the lights at the front have plastic lenses. The wheel hubs look smart, and the Krane graphics are very sharp. Behind the cab, the equipment tower is all metal. The wheel arches are a good plastic design, and at the rear there are lights with lenses. But disappointingly there's no number plates. Underneath the trailer it's mostly metal, and the structure's modelled quite well. However, most of the axle components are plastic. The gooseneck is a strong metal piece including the headboard and sideboards, and it's good to see the yellow stripe painted on the edge. The deck is entirely metal, and the surface has some texturing, with the timber parts represented by brown paint. The yellow stripe continues along the edge over the wheels, and at the rear there are some graphics and painted lights. Out on the test track, the MAN tractor rolls very smoothly in a straight line, no problems at all. The rear axles have a kind of floating suspension of the type that Conrad use, and the steering is linked and has a reasonable range of movement, but it doesn't go far before the wheels do get fouled by the wheel arches. So if you do pose it with a hard lock on the steering, it doesn't really want to roll, but at least you can show a hard lock on the steering, and that's probably preferable in my opinion. The other feature on the tractor is that the cab can tilt forward, and it goes to a pretty reasonable angle and can stay tilted, which is good. And of course underneath there's an engine that can be seen. And after you've greased your parts you can close the cab up. The trailer also rolls along very smoothly, certainly in a straight line, and if we look underneath we can see that the rear 4 axles have linked proportional steering, so the rear wheel steers the most. And that works quite well. The front 2 axles can be clipped out of service, so they just push in and can be clipped up. The range of clipping up is not huge, but it does work. And axle number 1 at the front also has steering. If you set the steering to be at a reasonably sharp angle, you can see that the trailer does in fact trace out quite a good looking arc when you push it, and that works quite well. Another feature that works reasonably well on the rear 4 axles particularly is that they all have a degree of suspension, so the axles can move up and down reasonably independently, and that's quite good. Not so much movement on the front 2, but it works. There are plenty of other features on the trailer. Firstly, the gooseneck is tiltable and to a good angle, as you can see, and the cylinder's stiff so it doesn't flop about. Underneath there are a couple of plastic landing legs which can just be pulled down to provide stability for the trailer if it's not hooked up to a tractor. And there are a couple of adjustable width marker boards which just slide in or out as you want. They don't pull out a huge distance, but if you pull them out and have a look at them you'll see that they're a reasonable representation of width markers. Back at the rear of the trailer there's a couple more feet which can be pulled down, and these are used for when you load the trailer with ramps at the rear. And with all the feet down it produces a solid and sturdy deck. I mentioned the loading ramps, and these are neatly stored underneath the deck in a little holder which has two opening doors to it, and when you open them you can just push the loading ramps out. They're metal parts and they're reasonably tight fit in the holder, but when you get them out they just hook over at the end, so you put one on each side and they stay on as long as you put them the right way round, and then you've got your loading ramps and you can show a piece of plant being loaded on the deck if you like. When you've done loading you can just collect the two ramps together, line them up properly, and then they'll go back inside the holder and stow away neatly and shut the doors. One very good feature of the deck is that it's extendable and it just pulls out smoothly to almost double its length, and you've got a little piece that goes along the beam as well to provide extra support, and it shuts very smoothly too. Joining the tractor and trailer is easy. The kingpin is just a push fit onto the fifth wheel in the usual Conrad fashion, and when you've done that the two roll together really well. One of the options available on the trailer is to fit deck posts. Now these are metal parts and one end is slightly thinned out because you use that to just push into slots in the trailer deck. The fit of these parts on the review model was pretty good, so they would mostly stand up quite straight, which always looks much better. And there's a variety of other slots available to fit the posts in if you want to have some slightly different configurations. Another optional feature is that you can pull out the plastic deck extension pieces, but there's no planks to go between them. These kind of trucks always look best when they've got some kind of a load to carry, so here we've got a heavy metal beam, and we can just pull out the trailer a little bit so that the beam is entirely contained on the trailer, and if we add a bit of icing then we can have an escort vehicle with it too. This is a good solid model which looks particularly good in the HN Krane livery. The detailing is pretty good, there's plenty of functionality on the trailer, and if you want this kind of truck in a rare paint scheme it's highly recommended.